Always thought this dude looked like Lou Reed. I don't know. It's just he looks exactly like Lou Reed. When I first saw the film, I was like, "Is fucking Lou Reed in this movie?" Today we are going to take a look at my favorite medium, comic books, mixed with my favorite film. One of my favorite films. I wouldn't say my favorite film, but one of my favorite films of all time, Blade Runner. And man, this comic book looks unbelievable. I don't know the process of whether this came out before the movie or not, but it follows pretty closely to the movie, if not exact. I think at some points. I've only seen certain pages in this, and it looks like it follows almost exactly to the film, which is very cool. Artwork by Al Williamson and Carlos Garzon, I think, does the second issue. And when you look at a comic book like this, with a movie like this, perspective is a huge, huge point because like you want to get that feeling of that world of Blade Runner, which is one of the reasons why Blade Runner is so cool. It's not really. I mean, the story's pretty rad too. But the reason why Blade Runner is so cool is it's this world that you just kind of get lost in, and I mean, we're starting out with this awesome splash page, where you are getting this feeling of you're in this, like the environment is really captured, you know. You got these flying cars and stuff. It's very, very cool. So I'm assuming this book came out in like '82, I think Blade Runner was, I believe. Let me get closer and see. Yeah, '82. So obviously based off of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, written by Philip K. Dick, one of my favorite writers of all time. And Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is actually my favorite book of all time. So seeing the film adaptation, and then seeing the comic book adaptation, I pretty much have every adaptation I think of the series, except for there was some series that came out in like I don't know, I think IDW put it out or something, but anyways. So we have this cool intro in the movie, if you've seen the film, pretty much exactly how it happens in the film. Obviously cut down a bit because you're in comics, so you can't do it exactly frame by frame, but they got the intro down. The first thing I will say is that the drawing is unbelievable. I don't know if there was some tracing going on or not. I have no idea, but the art looks really, really great. And, you know, just the way you establish the world and then you kind of get into this very seedy feeling of like the future, where you can tell the future is not very bright for our characters involved in this story. Very, very cool. And obviously this happened in the film. I mean, it's pretty much frame by frame, really. I mean, obviously condensed, but just I love the amount of it just looks so good. I mean, I love this like large room that they walk into, like the precinct. Just such cool perspective. I love I love everything about this. And it's cool because at least you had a second option back in the day, you know. It's like you can't see the film, or I don't know how like home video worked at the time. Maybe you couldn't get your hands on it at home, you know, to view at home. So you have this comic book that you can just go through and you can relive it. Or you can live through it for the first time if you hadn't seen the film. And then, man, what a great one-point perspective there. I also love the color, too. It's very, very, very cool. I keep saying that over. I'm very, very cool, very, very awesome, but it really is. I mean, there's nothing else I can honestly say. Love this perspective here and this building kind of going towards that way. Very creative. I will say that the film obviously is more, the establishing shots are more insane than the comic book is, but, you know, yeah, I've always thought this dude looked like Lou Reed. I don't know. It's just he looks exactly like Lou Reed. When I first saw the film, I was like, "Is fucking Lou Reed in this movie?" And I'm like, "It's '82." I don't think Lou Reed would, but it looks like Lou Reed. I don't know. Does he even do the test in this? Yeah, he does. But it's like very condensed. If you have not seen Blade Runner, I would advise you to see that movie because it is insanely good. It's one of those movies you got to watch multiple times. It may not click with you the first time because the first time I watched it, I was bored to fucking tears. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, this is the raddest movie I've ever seen. So, you should check it out. Who's the dude? Rutger Hauer, I think is his name. I'm going to feel really stupid if that's not his name. I'm going to feel really dumb if that's not his name. But that dude's rad as fuck. Awesome actor. I mean, it at times it looks like Harrison Ford, and other times it's like, it doesn't look anything like Harrison Ford. So there was some, I feel like there had to have been some tracing going on here, but the art looks unbelievable. I'm usually not into like that hyper realistic style, but it's Blade Runner. I mean, I'm not gonna not buy it and look at it. That's the thing is like I never wanted to draw. Like I buy a lot of comic books the way, like a lot of the artists I look at, I buy the books because I want to get inspiration because I want to draw like that. This style doesn't really particularly interest me in the point of like inspiration because I don't want to draw with this very realistic look, but I do appreciate it when I see it. Like I'm not the biggest Alex Ross fan, but I can look at Alex Ross's work and still be blown away by it, but it doesn't make me want to draw, if that makes any sense. Man, we already got the Snake Lady. I mean, there are only 2 issues, so. I mean, this must have been really difficult to get this film done in 2 issues. I don't even know if they finish it out. I honestly don't remember. Man, it looks so good. And I love the fact that it's an adaptation. Like they don't try to like hold back. They'd be like, we should make this more, you know, kid friendly or whatever. Which, by the way, I find it very interesting because I mean, sorry, trying not to rip my comic. Blade Runner is not a is not a film for children, and they managed to make a comic of it. I did not realize that this issue is a little screwed up. So, anyways, back to Al Williamson and Carlos Garzon. I think Carlos Garzon did the majority of this issue, but I'm not quite certain because it looks different. Harrison Ford looks more like Harrison Ford. Edward James Olmos, I think, is the other dude, right? I'm going to feel really stupid if these aren't the people's names. I'm not, like, I get nervous when I'm talking about people in films. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the person, but I believe that's him. And the other dude, what's that dude's name who plays that one android guy? I'm 32 years old. This is, like, way before my time. But I do love Blade Runner. Man. I love it. It just looks awesome. I mean, but I will say, what's his nuts? It does not look like him anymore. It looks different. Maybe they were like, you can't have my likeness. I don't know. But yeah, and then we get this awesome establishing shot, which I really like, right from the movie, and the chick on the screen. Very cool. We have our Lou Reed character again. Very cool. I mean, I just love this page. I really do. I do love this page. Such a cool page. I mean, it's just like it's right out of. I love it when you can get an adaptation that's like right out of like right from the film. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I had to pause for a second. But yeah, man, I love that. I love that. Like the vehicles, just look so cool. Man, this must have like blown people's minds back in the day when they saw this film. I couldn't imagine what it was like watching this film back in the day because I obviously wasn't around, and everything's fucking CGI'd now. But it must have been so cool to watch this back in the day. So we have more Rutger Hauer and the dude who looks like Lou Reed, and obviously in the film it does not end very well. And then we cut directly to. Oh man, I love this scene in the film. She looks so fucking creepy. And he like walks into the room and she's just like sitting there. So cool. I don't think she has the face paint, and I don't think she had the face paint before this, which is pretty interesting. But maybe she did. Maybe I missed it. I'm not sure. I just think it's so cool that they get through this in 2 issues. Very difficult job, I feel like, to do. And it's just, I mean, man, I love the world. The world looks so good, and they capture it perfectly. And like the cool things, like the checkered backgrounds and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, they did a great job on this book. They really, really did. And of course, we have the famous scene where he's climbing up, and the dude saves him, and you kind of see like, oh man, these androids, do they have human emotions? And of course, I mean, the big thing about Blade Runner is like, is Harrison Ford, is he actually an android himself? You know, and that's how we end. Oh wait, no, that's not how we end. Obviously, yes, of course. And then I think the end of the movie. Well, I don't think I know the end of the movie is he walks into the elevator with what's her face, and that's it. But we kind of get this like cool, like landscape at the end. But I really do love like this scene. It looks so good. I love the rain. The rain looks great. I mean, the inking on this is awesome too. Who's the inker on this? I'm not even sure who the inker on it is. I can't see from here. Inked by Carlos Garzon. So I don't know if the first issue was inked by Carlos Garzon too, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's fucking Blade Runner. How can you not love Blade Runner? I had to pause for a second because I had to make sure that I was like, am I calling Rutger Hauer by something else? It is Rutger Hauer. It's very hard when you're making a video, and you have to be like, you have to remember things, and you have to be like, oh, I don't want to sound like a moron, and yeah. So yeah, and then we get to the end, and how do I reach these kids? Talks to Harrison Ford, and he knows that Harrison Ford is kind of fooling around with an android, but he lets it go. Awesome adaptation. I know there's a really good one for, I think it's 2001: A Space Odyssey, that Jack Kirby did that I want to get my hands on at some point. I think it's actually like a Treasury edition too. I think they reprinted this, and I'm not sure if it was in a Treasury edition. It might have been. So I would be quite sad if there was a Treasury edition. I didn't get my hands on it because it's very cool to look at. But I'm usually not into this style of art, but it's Blade Runner. It's Al Williamson. I mean, and it's pretty much damn close to the film. I mean, obviously condensed, but it looks great. I mean, even like the drapery. I mean, because drawing a coat is really difficult. And they do a great job. I mean, obviously this is Garzon. But yeah, and I love that panel too. With like the lines, and it just looks so cool. And again, it's just like one of those things that kind of takes you back to a time. I mean, obviously I wasn't around during this time, but I can feel oh, this is what the world was like back then. You know, it has a very 80s feel to it, but it also has like this futuristic feel to it. So that's why I love it so much, because I feel like the 80s I'm one of those people who's like obsessed with the time before I existed. Because you're like, but I'm also like nostalgic about the time that I existed as well. Like the 90s were rad, but man, the 80s probably were super cool. And when you watch Blade Runner, it takes you back to the 80s, but it also does a really good job of making you feel like you're in the future, which is pretty rad. And Harrison Ford, probably the greatest actor of all time, because I mean, he was in Star Wars and Blade Runner, and he's Indiana Jones. I mean, can you get better than that? I don't know. But anyways, that is Blade Runner, Marvel Comics adaptation of it. I'm very shocked that they did an adaptation of this, but it's pretty much almost spot on to the film. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and hopefully you're a fan of Blade Runner. If you are, if you were around at that time and you saw it, like tell me what that was like, because that must have been crazy. I always wonder what it'd be like, because like I was like, man, when they made the Star Wars movies, I was like, dude, it's gonna be sick. Like I'm gonna be able to say like I saw like when they redid the Star Wars or made the new Star Wars movies, I was like, man, I'm gonna be able to say that I saw Star Wars when it came out in theaters. And of course, it wasn't as good as the original series, which was quite sad. And then Blade Runner 2049 or whatever the hell it is, I never saw that either. Because I'm like, do I really want to... Does Blade Runner really need a... Do they really need another film? They felt that they needed it too, but I never watched it. I own it. I just never watched it. And I feel like if I watched it, it's going to ruin the first film. Tell me if you've seen Blade Runner 2049. I think that's what it's called. Is it any good? And if you were around back in the 80s and you saw it in the movie theaters, like, what was that like when you saw the original Blade Runner? Imagine it probably blew your mind. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I went off on a little tangent, but hopefully you enjoyed the video, and yeah, subscribe, like, whatever, or don't.